Okay, guys, we're back this time out in the garage, and we're gonna now that we've cleaned up the cylinders, we're gonna start putting the pistons in. So hey, let's crack on. Okay, guys, we're gonna start to assemble the pistons here, and we have brand new caged roller bearings, new wrist pin, and of course a new piston minus the rings. Now on these pistons, they're marked, and I'll show you. Hopefully you can see this. There's actually an arrow here that's to point to the outside of the engine, okay? It also says 6VL, meaning this is a left side. This piston goes on the left side. This is really important because of the orientation of the ports on the piston for it being a two-stroke. So we need to make sure that the arrow is pointing out here to the end, to this side of the engine, and it's on the left side, which it is. So that's what we're going to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of I've got some two-stroke oil here, a little bit of Lucas two-stroke, and normally I wear gloves for stuff, but this is one of those operations where you need, I think I do anyways, need the dexterity of my fingers. So I'm going to get a little bit oily here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of take a little bit of the two-stroke oil and get everything kind of lubed up a little bit in preparation for putting this together. I think a person could choose to put one of the I guess snap rings on one side of the piston as a starting point, but I'm not actually going to do that. I'm going to put them both on separately after we get this installed. At least that's going to be my first attempt. So we'll just grease this stuff a little bit again with two-stroke oil. At the end of the day, that's what this engine is going to be using. So that's what we're going to use. Now I also have a little piece of fuel line. And what I'm going to do is once I have the piston in, I'm going to actually use that to help center the roller bearing, etc., in the pistons for pushing it all together. So we're going to give that a try. Now I do have a tool for pressing them together, which I did use for removing the pistons as well. But I've done a bit of a test fit, and I don't think that's necessary. These are really, I think I can push it together with my fingers or with my hands, but we're going to find out. So again, we're making really sure we have the right piston in the correct orientation, which we do. First thing we're going to do is take the caged needle bearings. And again, I guess I should mention this engine originally did not have caged needle bearings. It had loose needle bearings. And I'm not comfortable doing the job that way, frankly, right? I'm a bit of a rookie. I'm not a mechanic. I'm a tinkerer, as my channel indicates. It's tinkering, motoring, and music. We're definitely tinkering here. And so I'm just more comfortable with, caged bearings. I think it's going to make the process easier. So that's what we're going to do here. So those go into the rod first. Now we're, again, got our being very careful to make sure we have the orientation of our piston correct. I'm now going to take that little piece of tubing and orient it to the rod so that I can just kind of hold it in center here before we actually start pushing sorry guys, hard to talk and do this at the same time. Okay. Yeah, so I've got my, okay, actually, maybe it's easier to show like that. I've got my little piece of rubber tubing through there, okay? So it's through the piston, it's through the caged bearing, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and take my pin here, and I'm going to push it through gently, following the tubing, letting it push the tubing out gently, and see if we can just push this in, okay? So this will be the moment of truth for us. So this won't line it exactly, it just kind of gets it rough, so we're going to have to maybe fight with it a little bit. And maybe this won't work. This is a bit of an experiment, so we're going to see here. Maybe it would be easier to look at it from the other side a little bit. We're going to try that, so because this doesn't appear to be working well for me. So I'm sure you guys are yelling at your TV screens or your computer screens saying, "Do it this way, dummy," and you know what? I could use your help right about now, so I'm just going to center it with something a little bit smaller so I can see what I'm doing here. Okay, you know what? I think I'm going to have to use the proper tool. I don't think this is working. I think I need to do this the proper way, so that's what we're going to do. Okay guys, second attempt. This time we're going to use our proper tool to do this job. And to be honest with you, I should probably look up how to use it, but just logically what I'm going to do here is we've got the needle bearing in here, the cage needle bearing. We're going to take this part of the tool here, which is really just a little cylinder, which is the exact same diameter as the inside diameter of the needle bearing. We're going to put that inside there. It's all, not only is it the same diameter, but it's the same, essentially the same width. We'll be able to get the piston over top of that. Then again, carefully ensuring our piston is lined up correctly, we're then going to place this over that whole assembly like this. Okay. We're then going to take our tool, okay, and place it over top of the piston like this. And we're going to back this out sufficiently that we can get the piston pin into that hole, okay? And we're going to push it with this other little part of the tool. So that's going to be the goal or the dream here. So we're going to push this into here. This is where I can see it would be a lot more sense to do this the other way around, wouldn't it? So we're going to do this the other way around. We'll try this again. Okay guys, we're going to give this a bit of a different approach. I've taken a little bit of a look online, and what most people say to do is to put the piston in the oven for a little while and put the wrist pin in the freezer for a little while. So that's exactly what I've done. I've left left them in the freezer and oven respectively for 15 minutes now, and in the oven at 225 degrees Fahrenheit, and so nothing terribly crazy, and of course in the freezer for the wrist pin. So we're going to see if that helps. It should allow us to slide the wrist pin in a lot easier. The other thing I noticed other people were doing, and I think is a really good idea, is to center the piston. The rod here was constantly falling, and it's really hard to keep it centered. So what I've done is I've taken a J cloth, okay, to center the piston, center the rod here so when we put the piston down, it should be much more aligned. Before it was completely askew to one side, and very hard, if not impossible, to move it back into position, with the piston on top there. So those are the little changes we're making here, and let's see if that makes it a little bit easier. Let's find out. Okay guys, it's go time. We're going to give this a shot. So we're going to start off by just putting our spacer in here inside the inside the roller bearings. We'll make sure again our piston is aligned correctly. Wow, that thing is hot. Ooh, papers. Make sure this is lined up. Wrist pin is there now. It does go in a little bit easier. We'll get it on the other side and take a look at it from this angle. Whew, she's warm. She is warm. Okay, maybe I overdid it in the oven. So I think that means we're going to use our tool again. I think we're making progress here. If nothing else, we're learning a little bit of something, right? So that's always the exciting bit. Now then, we're going to line it up from this side. You know what, guys? We're getting it. We're getting it finally. So yeah, so that's the secret, I guess, is to heat the pistons up, in the oven. Put the wrist pin into the freezer, and that makes it a lot easier. Although I'm clearly still having to use the tool here, obviously, but this does make it easier. Okay, so we're gonna have to do an adjustment on that so that we can get our circlips on this thing on each side. Oh, actually, hang on. I haven't got this all the way through, do I? Well, I was looking at the, I was all excited. I was looking at the end piece, but of course that end piece is my little pusher piece as part of this tool. So we need to push the wrist pin in all the way, and we haven't done that yet. So here we go. Now our little tool piece is coming out. Well, this is exciting. We're getting closer. Just get this in. Don't really want to push this too far. We want to get it so that we can see the ridges for the circlip ideally, if I can spot that. If not, we'll just push it back the other way a little bit. I think that's good for now. We'll adjust it the rest of the way as need be. So this can come out, and this one can come out. These are push pins that we used on either side of this equation. Okay, and take that off, and look at that, guys. We have a piston almost on there. We got circlips to go, but yeah, we got that very, very close. Awesome, that's great. Okay, good. So we can actually take our J-cloth out of here now, just to kind of show you that that worked. It did really help to center this thing up. This wasn't very easy. I'm sure for somebody that knows what they're doing a little bit better than I do, it would be a lot easier, but hey, look at that, that worked. Came out of there perfectly without issues. The beauty of a J-cloth, of course, I would not recommend paper towel or anything that's going to break easy, but a thin, solid towel and a brand new, don't use a 15-year-old one, use a brand new J-cloth, worked really, really well, so highly recommend that. Did the job we needed to get done, so that's ideal. Okay, I'm going to get those circlips in as the next step. Okay guys, we're now going to put the circlips in. I've put one in on the other side, and then what I did is I used the tool, right, to just snug it up against the pin, okay? And now we're going to put the final pin in. So these things, you got to watch that you don't lose these things across the room, obviously. So you're going to grab them carefully. The other thing I noticed is some of them have the pins, these pins here that are sitting up, pointed in or out, and it would make sense to me that they should be pointing inward. We don't ever want them scraping the bore, right? So if yours are a little bit, you know, askew or off kilter like these are, just make sure that that part of it is always pointing to the inside. That would just make sense to me. And of course, the other critical thing is to get it into the grooves, right? So that's really, really critical. You need to be pretty careful and, dare I say, anal about that. You don't want these things coming out. So yeah, we've got those in the grooves just well there. That looks really good to me. So we're going to call that good. That is one piston on and done. So now, now that we've done that, we just have to do it again. So that's we'll do it the next one on here. So we'll speed that up. So hopefully we make this one a little bit faster than we did this one. We'll find out. Okay, guys, we're now going to see if we can put the wrist pin in for the second piston. Again, making sure that we have it aligned correctly. So yeah, we're just going to grab it here and see if we can get the job done. So it's a little bit on the warm side, I can tell you that. So actually, you know what I think we're going to do? I think we're going to start the pin here a little bit like this. Yeah. Put the pin in here, put the piston in. And I need to try this again a little bit here. Okay guys, we're using the same process on the second cylinder here, again with the arrow aligned correctly to the outside of the engine. It is a right-hand piston, so it's on the right side of the engine, so all those things are good. And we're using the tool to just push first through our spacer tool that we had inside the caged roller bearings, and now we're pushing the wrist pin through. So that's how that works. What I found works really best is to kind of get right down and look from the other side, so you can actually, you know, see down the borehole, and then just make sure you're lined up and twist her in. And that really does work the best. Initially I was just trying to bend over and kind of peer in the hole, and Yeah, it takes a little bit more precision than that. The tolerances here are crazy tight, as you'd expect and as you'd want. So we've just about got the spacer part of the tool about ready to come out. And once it comes out, then we'll go and put the, I think this time we'll go and we'll put the snap ring on this side and then push the pin against the snap ring gently and then do this side last. So I think that's going to be our preferred approach here. That's just about out of there. Let's take a look. Yeah, we got her out. Okay, great. So now what we're going to do is grab a snap ring and put it in there. So we'll give that a try. These snap rings they're kind of, in my view, a little bit on the big side, but this is what's supposed to be for this engine, so that's what we're using. But their tolerances are really, when these things are even completely together, they seemingly are, you barely get them in there, so, because they're pretty large. That one is actually quite large. I'm going to see if I can find, I've got a few different ones, so I'm going to see if I can find a different one. I'm just going to pause the video here. Okay guys, we've put the snap ring on this side. I've snugged it up just up against it. So now we're going to take the tool off. Take the tool off because it has now done its job, and then we'll put the final snap ring on this side. So yeah, and by doing that, we seemingly have a fair bit of room over on this side. So that's what we want. So let's get the snap ring in there. Okay. Gotta be careful with this so we don't lose it. Yeah, and there we go. That one's in there. Nice. Very nice. It's gonna have a really good look at that. Make sure she's exactly in the groove all the way around. And she is. So there we go. We have 2 pistons in. Isn't that exciting? And now the last step, of course, the most technical part of the whole equation. Get your rag out of there. Yeah, okay, great. All right, well, that was a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be, frankly, but we're learning something as we go here, so it's all good. The next step, of course, will be to put the cylinders on and then, of course, the heads, but I think the one thing I'm going to do, because I don't think I've done it yet, is actually clean these bolts up, because the remaining bolts on here, I don't know if you remember from a video way back, were really rusty, so I want to get those cleaned up as nice as these 2 are, and then we will install those, and then we'll start assembling the rest of the engine. Okay guys, we're going to start by putting the piston rings onto the engine now. We didn't do that previously before putting these in, because of course we needed to use that tool that I was showing you using, and if we had, it would have been compressing the springs, and that'd be bad. So in case you're wondering why I'm doing it in this order, that's why I'm doing it in this order. So there are 3 piston rings, and the package is actually labeled for the right side, although I don't know if it really matters. However, the piston rings are all identical, so we don't have to worry about, which one goes first or second or third. They all just are the same. The other thing that's interesting about these pistons is there is a little, call it a little nub or indent in a different spot on each groove, and that's to account for the gap, okay? So that when they're actually compressed on the engine, the little nub, or recessed nub, actually will stop them from rotating in the engine, and that's particularly important for a 2-stroke engine because of the porting. If if the piston ring head rotates, it could actually jam on one of the intake or exhaust ports, right? So that's why they need to go in a particular orientation. So we're going to give this a shot. We're just going to do them carefully one at a time, just going down into each groove as we go. So that's in the first groove. Now we have to get it open into the next groove. Got careful not to break it, of course. It's a little hard on the fingers for sure. because the ends of the piston ring are quite sharp. I'm actually going to grab some work gloves here, see if that makes it a little bit easier. Okay guys, we're just putting the rings on here again. I got some gloves. As I mentioned, the ends here, oh, let's focus. They're kind of sharp. And I've got office hands, so yeah, so for me, I'm just wearing these rubber gloves to assist a little bit. The other thing, so getting in the first groove is pretty simple, but getting it into the next grooves can be a little bit hard. Although look at that, I just got that one. I've been getting better at it. What I was going to show you, and maybe I'll show you on the other piston, is I was using an old feeler gauge that I have of really, this thing is so old I can't, oh actually it's 4/1000ths of an inch. What I was doing is getting it on there and then just putting it around on one side, and it's probably ruining this feeler gauge or messing it up, but it would hold it in place enough that I could, then wiggle it down into the next groove. So if you're having trouble or worried about breaking these things, as I am, that might be a strategy. The reason I'm a little worried about it is I did a little practicing on the old pistons, and I wound up breaking a couple of the rings, and I really don't want to do that with the new ones. So there you go, there's one piston done. Nice. Okay, good. Now obviously, as I mentioned, we have to line these up when we're putting the cylinders on to make sure they're in the right spot for the indent. And but we're not going to worry about that now because they're just rattling around in there. We'll get them right as we're putting them into the cylinder. So now the next one, we're just going to use the kickstart here, which I've temporarily put on to move the engine down a little bit here. Get it to move. Come on. Oh, there we go. That was a little severe. There we go. Okay, great. Okay, so that one's ready to go. Got to be careful of those rings. I was lucky. We don't break one, so we're doing that. So I'm moving the engine around. And we're just gonna, I'm using these J-claws just to hold the piston in place, so that we can, work on it a little bit easier as we're pushing down on the piston rings. So see if we can get that kind of in place there. That seems not too bad. I'll just grab the rings here. Everything has its spot. You got to stay organized when you're doing a job like this. So we're trying to stay organized. Okay. And this says left, so we're going to put those on the left side of the engine. That seems right to me. Okay, same process. I think I'm going to come over and undo them over on this side of the bench though. Okay, same process. Alright, we'll get the first one on there. Okay, hey, look at that. We now have an engine with pistons and piston rings. Isn't that exciting? So we are getting closer. So get our trusty J-cloth out of there. And yeah, we're not going to move that engine anymore until we put the heads on. So we'll start with the left head, just simply because we've already got the piston in the upright position here. There's a danger, as you saw with me a moment ago, of actually, luckily I didn't, but it would be really easy to clip one of these rings on the side of the case at this point, bringing the engine up and down. So although it's tempting to try to cycle the engine, it's, I would think, a really bad idea. So we're not going to do that. So again, next step will be to clean up the posts. Okay guys, just before we go ahead and do any more, I said we're going to clean up the bolts. I just wanted to show you a little bit of a before and after, so just to give you a sense of how rusty the head bolt studs were. Yeah, hopefully you can see that, but I mean, really rusty. There's another one, and yeah, look at the chunkies on this one, right? So yeah, so we're gonna go clean those up. We'll wire wheel them, etc., and bring them back and install them on the engine. That'll be next. Okay guys, this time we're out in the workshop and we're going to use the old trusty wire wheel to clean these engine studs up. So let's get after it. So hopefully you can hear me over the whir of this thing. We're just going to clean these up, just get everything off of them, get all the rust off, and just clean them up. There's one, much better. So yeah, we'll just do that with all 4 of them here. Okay, so so we got those done. Here they are cleaned up. So we're now good to go. So we're gonna put these into the engine, and then we can put the cylinder heads on top. So that'll be the next step. Okay, guys, let's install the head bolts. So just put 2 nuts on there, jamming the top one onto it, just so that we can screw it down. We'll grab our wrench and give her a tighten. Don't have to get too carried away. It's obviously going to get tightened when the engine gets put on. So now we'll just take it off. I know some people don't like them, but I really like these ratcheting wrenches. They're not good for everything, but they're good for lots of things, and I kind of like them. People say you can break them, but I've never broken one yet. Okay, one more to go. Number 5. So that part is done. I think at this stage we're going to take a break. Take a break, and then we'll go and we'll put the gasket material on here, and then of course assemble each of the cylinder heads one at a time, carefully aligning these piston rings, and I'll explain that process a little bit more in the next videos. So look, hey, hopefully everybody's having a great time and doing super well. Hopefully you're out in your workshop doing a little bit of tinkering, and yeah, hope everybody has a good one. And of course, I have to ask if you can please like and please subscribe on this video. I would really appreciate it if you could do that. So we're trying to slowly get to 1,000 subscribers. I think I'm nowhere near that. So if you can help me out, man, would really appreciate it. Take care, guys, and bye, everyone.